So I would start my guitar, and I would start playing. I was by myself most of the time. I'd start playing. I would start walking down Haight Street towards Stanyon. And I'd cross the street. I'd go through a little sliver of the park, and I had to go through another street. I'd go to what was called Hippie Hill. Hippie Hill. Well, I'd stand out there and play a couple of songs, and then I'd preach in between. I'd preach, and people did the craziest things. You probably want to delete this. It was not uncommon to see couples having sex right in front of me. Daylight. That's the way the hippie thing was there. They were stoned, weird, and they'd lost any sense of propriety. And a lot of times they did it just to embarrass me and to freak me out. So that was a way that it would happen. But there's another way that happened too, which was kind of unusual. And I only experienced it there. I never had it happen to me again. I'd be in this big throng. I mean, thronged with people. I mean, wall to wall, building to street. I'd be walking down, and I'll tell you one story. I could see a guy coming toward me. He must have been about 6'6", 6'7", big, tall, skinny, white hippie dude. Long hair, beard. And I managed to get myself where he had to run into me. He stopped, and I pointed my finger at his chest. I said, Jesus. He dropped to his knees and received Christ. That's the only word I said to him. A big prayer right there. And then he got up and walked away. Now there is one other incident. I have to back up. There's another thing that happened. In 1968, Ted Weiss, Danny Sands, Steve Heathner, Jim Dopp, Lonnie Frisbee, they moved into Haight, Ashbury on Page Street, very close to Stanyon. And they called it the living room. When I found out about that, I was there every noon because their guy's wife would cook lunch, and I'd go. That's where I ate. Most of the time, I was living at a rescue mission in the Fillmore district, which is the next district to Haight, Ashbury, run by two black ladies, and I would peel potatoes, wash dishes, and preach. But after I got to know these people, and Lonnie liked to talk theology. And because I had a seminary background and so on, and so we would walk around, and he was filled with questions. But what had happened inexplicably, without any attempt on his part or my part, crowds would gather. Right there, crowds would just gather. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know how, but all of a sudden traffic would be stopped, cops would come, but before this, little group, Lonnie would start preaching. He was not a very good preacher. He was getting a lot of things wrong. It wasn't an experienced guy preaching the gospel. It was somebody who knew very little. But that didn't matter. That did not matter. The numbers of people that got converted in those, I would say I had that experience with Lonnie about 4 or 5 times about 4 or 5 times. And I remember the cops coming, and I would get away and go talk to the cops so Lonnie could continue. And I'd see the cops coming, and I'd say, I explained, I said, we can't help that. We didn't do anything. We just started preaching, and the crowds gathered, and the traffic stopped. Okay, we'll get over this soon. I'll